So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts 122, my first stream with a brand new computer, which I'm hoping doesn't mean that all of this is just going to be falling apart, because I have no idea. I already had problems just getting this version of OBS to connect to YouTube, because it wasn't as simple as the last one, although I do appreciate the greater integration that this one is offering, which we're not going to super get into, but like, yeah, I also had everyone show up like a half an hour early to make sure audio levels were good, which they absolutely were not. So I'm still not positive that they're all okay because like everything's different. So
you're
first,
still really loud. So
I'm sorry,
but yeah, I just said you're still really loud, but that's okay. I can
I
fix
apologize.
that. There we go. Okay, all right. Well, just so long as you apologized.
Yeah, I am sorry, very sorry.
Okay.
How dare I? I'll start with
because you know that's just all it takes. When you apologize, everything's good.
So the chat is saying that your microphone sounds like ass.
Who's?
Mine.
Dapper's mic.
Dapper's.
The chat is saying that it sounds like complete ass.
Yeah.
That he's
I shouldn't
peeking.
have been peeking because it wasn't peeking, but let me know how it is now.
Your hands over your mouth, you're muffled. That's so weird.
Well, let's read a couple chats and we'll see if anything has changed.
Okay.
Because I did change a setting, and maybe that was it. Oh, apparently that was it, according to Shesh. There we go.
Okay.
Coming to Trifurcation, who's been a member for 13 months, says Dapper, your mic is being an AIG. That was the first one that clued me in. So I'll take it as Dapper's a professional, because while it is still new computer trying to, work out all the kinks, I will accept that was probably a me thing, because I did change the setting and it got better. So there's a Dapper's a professional. Jillian Solid Waves Ren, who's been a member for 25 months and is at the Amniote level, says, good lord, over 2 years. Well, congratulations on the new computer and free the kip with a Vishanti and a Mothra, so we'll take a drink for the Mothra right there. Remember, we can free the kip. There is a super chat goal. If we get 30 steel or higher super chats in the next, it says 18 minutes.
What?
I screwed that up. That's the Dapper's a professional. we're gonna change that.
Can we blame that on the new computer too?
Stress test day.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this goal. Okay. We're gonna do it different. We're gonna basically do the same goal, but we're gonna do it again, right? Okay. So we have 2 hours to get them, and there you go. So no one gave to the goal. So like no harm, no foul. If you have a $5 or higher super chat that you want to give, like maybe give it a minute. So that way, like, the goal actually registers with YouTube. Fits of Mitochondrial Eve Rage, who's been a member for 19 months, is at the Tetrapod level, says, will this abomination finally end today? AIG is a bag of dicks emoji. So, well, let's take a drink for the AIG is a bag of dicks. And the answer is, yeah, probably.
Probably. I'm just, it took us...
We're going to finish this chapter today.
Okay, Jillian Wren is saying that Hollyhock messaged her that the chat is in members only mode.
It shouldn't be.
It kind of looks that way.
It does kind of look that way.
Yeah, it 100% looks that way. That's weird.
Let's see. Oh, it does say that. Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, it should be fixed now. It should be anyone. Now, anyone.
Oh, it's now off.
Yeah, everyone can now chat. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Oh, you know what that is? That was from when I did the members only stream with Chesh.
Oh yeah, with Chesh.
So yeah, we'll take.
I was gonna say, dang, is Mercury in Gatorade or something like?
I only want to hear from you if you give me money. No, I'm kidding.
Right now. Oh, there's Holly. Woo!
All right. Oh, there it is. Okay, good.
Wayward Scythe is like freedom.
Look, I'm sorry. That was my first ever members only stream, and I didn't realize the degree to which it would like. Those settings would follow on. So like, yeah, my apologies on that. As well as the mic being off because of settings being different and everything. So please do forgive me. I'm still ironing out all the kinks on the new computer.
Did the degree to which those settings followed on end up being 100%?
No, because non-members were able
Oh.
to actually watch the stream, which they weren't able to do.
That's
the chess
okay.
stream.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Triceratops Young Earth Creationists Meet Giant Planetary Sinkhole member for 15 months says F-bombs ensure maximum professionalism with a Godzilla and a Mothra. It's true, but remember, if you want to get the free F-bomb pass, it is a super chat goal. And Renee Resurfacing Fossil Trees Reborn for $5 says, free the kit with our first super chat that is going to advance Kip being allowed to drop as many F-bombs as he wants.
I don't
here's
know
the plan.
how.
Oh,
Okay, you go.
Real quick, just this won't take but just
Okay.
a moment. I just want to acknowledge something that I have noticed over the past couple weeks in YouTube land, in real life land, in my organizing land, just across the whole board. Most of us are barely hanging in there, barely holding it together. I just want to call attention to that. And just let that be something that we're all aware of. That we're all pretending really well, but we're just spit and baling wire, most of us. So, I could say something frou-frou like, "Oh, just be supportive of each other right now." Like, okay, sure, but just sometimes acknowledging it and giving words to it is most of the work.
It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here is the plan for today. So I'm going to go a little bit over what we touched on last time towards the end, just so we have the context for going forward, because we didn't stop at like a natural breaking point. Then we're going to get through this chapter, and we're going to see how far into the conclusion we get, because there's a fair chance that even
conclusion.
if the actual conclusion, even though this chapter started out with a conclusion to the whole book, which is weird, but if we get even close to like a third of the way through the conclusion, we're probably not going to come back just to finish the conclusion. So, because I think that we have, after this, I think we will have covered everything that is worth covering in this book. And when I say worth covering, I mean worth mocking relentlessly, because let's face it, this book has no actual value for anyone.
Worth talking about, because we don't care about his like preaching section.
Yeah,
we only care about like
all the preaching
science
stuff.
claims.
Yeah, science claims, history claims, claims about linguistics, stuff like that. Although I guess linguistics is a science. I mean, it has experiments, hypotheses, empirical data. Yeah. So
sure.
Which is funny, because speaking of linguists, of which Dapper is not, he claims.
Not a linguist.
No. I got to visit Digital Hammurabi's household last weekend.
Yes.
And spend some time with Dr. Josh and Megan and their little kiddos. And the legend of Dapper's, yes, and their two cats, who they guarded me while I was in bed.
Oh, that's nice.
And also, hello, Macy Cat. Macy Cat. It was funny, the legend of Dapper's #NotALinguist came up while we were in the kitchen eating dinner. And, Megan Lewis didn't really know offhand who Dapper was. So Josh got to explain to her, like, oh yeah, he invited me on his channel to have a nice talk about something that wasn't slavery. We were talking about, like, Assyriology. And then he starts asking me about split ergativity. Just the legend.
In my defense, I think that anyone who has studied a language professionally in which split ergativity is a feature is someone who at least knows what it is and can explain it at a basic level.
Forever not a linguist.
Not a linguist.
I'm not a linguist.
You're never beating the charges.
Look, just because I can say, like, I know, like, the binomial nomenclature for most of the animals that I meet on my daily life, does that make me a biologist? No. It doesn't. All right, we got a few super chats here. Meat Permits Tad for $5 says, the dog I am watching stole a bunch of my Cheez-Its, but that still makes him only a fraction of an AIG with the Godzilla. We'll take a drink.
Can I read Lieutenant Matt the Navigator's chat?
This is good. I like this one.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for 5 says, or writes, the Bodie Hodge Center for alleged adults who can't research good and want to learn to do other stuff too.
Excellent.
I love that Chesh says this is some not a linguist apologetics here nonsense.
And Team Owen,
somebody else,
dogmatic chronotastic
pitching
centrism, Says Dapper, not a linguist, but is he a linguist? And
Then in
Timo and
Timo
B is
and B,
also
yeah.
pitching for the Doctors Kip and Josh School for apologists who don't Bible
Don't buy.
good.
Please make a shirt. Use your cartoon avatars that Paula Gia drew.
Yeah, but a shirt can't be big enough to be an entire school. It would have to be at least 3 times that size.
No, like, okay, no. Here's what you do. If I have to help you do this, we will create a logo that looks like an official university seal, and we'll help you make shirts out of it.
Oh, this is good. I know a guy, so I bet who can help me out with that.
Do it.
So I might need a screen cap of this. Just to make sure I don't lose it.
I'm screen capping it right now.
Roshina,
Are you? Okay, thanks. That means I don't have to.
Roshina, the facticity of Cheese Keller, who has, or just sends a 99-cent blank super chat. Thank you very much, Roshina. If there was something that you wanted to put in there, do tag me. Nether 6 biblically accurate tunicate says most biologists can't give a binomial like that, and I am saying that as a molecular biologist. Okay, what about zoologists though? Because like when I say that, like I don't mean like I know all of the binomials. I mean like I make it a point of like animals that I encounter, I like to know what they are so that I can look up papers about them, or ones that I actually have a particular interest in. Like recently, I've decided.
A walking Pokedex.
It's true. But like recently, I've decided that I like looking into more things about human interactions with certain animals, like Calidris serpentina, which I always had a bad. When I was being raised and introduced to human society, they always had a very, very, very bad reputation, to the point that I knew people who would kill them on sight. And then more recently, I was like, that seems like an extreme reaction, especially given the incredibly small number of people that I've ever heard of actually being attacked by the common snapping turtle, despite how just ubiquitous they are across huge swaths of North America, including into Canada, not Kip's part.
Do not mess with snapping turtles.
Yeah, don't mess with them, but they're also not coming out to attack you.
I mean, you can hear them hissing at you, which is a good,
that's because they're threatened
a good
by
sign
you.
To go the other direction.
Right, but that's the thing. They're threatened by you. They're not aggressive. Like, alligators will come out and attack you.
I beg to differ. Snapping turtles absolutely are aggressive.
I disagree. I have yet to find an instance where I could verify.
I think you need to meet some Alabama.
I have no opinion.
Turtles. Because M. Jones is mean.
But that's the other thing, is I've also seen very, very nice and not mean snapping turtles.
Not all snapping turtles.
Guys,
that's the thing, right?
This is what it's like watching movies with fish and...
Not all Krogans.
And yet you still request it. Yeah, it's true. Not all Krogans either. You know. Also, hey, if you're a Krogan, implanting other Krogans' testes into yourself doesn't actually improve your fertility, because, spoiler alert, the genophage is actually affecting female fertility.
Okay, so that reminds me.
Perfectly fertile. Doesn't matter.
Remember that someone in this chat bought me the Legendary Edition of Mass Effect, and it took me almost a year to play it. Well, update, Vishanti beat Mass Effect 1 yesterday in front of a witness. That witness being Dapper Dinosaur.
I was there. I saw it.
And
okay.
Yes. So that happened. I just want you to know that I completed my sworn obligation to play Mass Effect, even though it took me a very long time.
Yes, and now she has to play Mass Effect 2.
Thank you.
No spoilers for Mass Effect 2.
I have a soft spot for Krogans. I managed to...
Yeah.
Rex is still alive. If you know, you know.
All right. Sean, the 21st century viewer of this channel for $10 says, makes you more of a biologist than the biologist at AIG, that famous bag of dicks. Which, one, yes, that is true. Also, I appreciate the use of the funny I and C and K and whatnot to get around the YouTube censorship. Take a drink. Dutch domestic T-Rex tunicate for $5 says, I've been around a lot of common snapping turtles in and out of water. If they wanted to attack people, I would have heard about way more bites. Which is one of the things, right? It's like... It's like rattlesnakes. Are they dangerous? Yes. Are rattlesnakes out to kill you? No, they don't want anything to do with you.
You're going to know well in advance that there's a rattlesnake around, and you have plenty of opportunity to not engage with it. That's what the rattle's for.
Just think of the rattlesnake saying, I'm trying not to kill you.
I mean, it is. That's the thing. A rattlesnake is trying not to kill you. Now, the thing is, though, like, snapping turtles don't have as much of an obvious warning mechanism, in part because they don't want to spend time on land anyway. And in water, they're actually shy and very avoidant of humans. But on the land, they don't have the option.
They hiss at you. I don't know how else to emphasize this. That's their warning.
That's not as obvious as the rattle. It's quieter.
Dude,
Right.
I really think you need to meet some Alabama snapping turtles because them Jones is loud and mean. Yeah.
Mini Geeky Platypus Warlock, who's been a member for 7 months, says, Snapping Turtle Gang attacked me with choreography. Nice. My Unfinished Journey for 222 says, Hail Dabs, Kip, Vish, and Concussive Conclusions. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, if she likes Krogan, wait until she meets the very model of a scientist Solarian. I am looking forward to hopefully being an observer when Vishanti finally gets to be introduced to the very model of a scientist Solarian. And then
I know spoilers for a 20-year-old game, but like there's only a couple of times where I made the decision to like do something just super out of character for me in real life. Because for the most part, I played Paragon. It was kind of a goody two-shoes-ish. Because it makes me feel better to be nice. But when I took Garrus on his mission to, get the scientist who's growing body parts inside of people, I absolutely was like, nope, let him die.
Yep.
Fuck this dude.
Yep. I was there.
Yep.
Also, you just dropped our F-bomb, so Kip doesn't get any.
Oh. Why should he get all of them?
What the?
Unless, of course, we get the
Apparently
He
goal
doesn't
met.
get all of them.
See, listen, this is you give the way this works is you give the people what they want.
No, they have to give themselves what they want by getting
I guess so.
That's
That's
24 more super chats.
But I'm betting they didn't want that. Wow.
Mira DeFalco in the chat says they have serious attitude, but they're slow is so not difficult to deal with. Exception, locomotion slow. They can strike bite. I think that's still snapping turtles. Which
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're within...
we got history, okay?
If you're within strike range, which is fairly large and covers a large portion of their body, then yeah, they're very, very quick. However, if you're outside of that, it takes them a while to go places on land. Now, they're not as slow as many other water turtles, like, because they can put their legs more or less directly under their body, which is why they have such a small plastron, which, by the way, is one of the reasons that they're so bitey when they feel threatened, because they can't rely on tucking themselves into their shell because their plastron is too small. Anyway.
Tresh says, we're learning about Vishanti's beef with snapping turtles. Oh yeah, you're just now starting to learn. We got history.
Look, I don't necessarily want to come up and pet one like a dog, but I also feel that way about rattlesnakes, and I don't hate rattlesnakes.
I have visceral memories of us trying to play outside and having to immobilize or neutralize a snapping turtle by somehow getting my friend's dad to wrangle it and trap it in a bucket and then lay a giant slab of concrete on top of it so that it couldn't tip the bucket over and get out at us.
I mean,
it's hissing the whole time.
There are multiple ways to safely handle even an aggressive and currently poised to strike turtle. There are parts of their body that you can hold them from where you can support their weight and they can't reach you. In fact, they can't reach most of their plastron, although they can reach over their carapace almost all the way back. So if you're going to hold them by the carapace, you better do it from the very back, which is already going to be tough. So another way is to put your hand towards the middle of the plastron and then steady them, but not support their weight with their tail or the back of the carapace, because they can't reach that.
Yeah, we do not have good memories of snapping turtles, because the ones where I grew up are extremely large and aggressive and mean. And one of the many, 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 many reasons I moved out of the Deep South to the LA Basin, where there are no snapping turtles.
By the way, common snapping turtle, 4th largest reptile in North America. After the American crocodile, the alligator snapping turtle, then it's the common snapping turtle. Although, oddly enough, alligator snapping turtles, harder to get bit by because they don't have nearly the same strike range. Much shorter neck. So, you can actually pick them up by the carapace and they can't reach you. Unless you're directly in front of them, they basically can't bite. Alright, Claude Simeon for $5 says, more Vish cursing, please. Well, I'll tell you what, I will extend the F-bomb pass to Vishanti if we can get there. But anyway, we're not actually here to...
stinking passes.
we're not actually here to talk about turtles. Believe it or not. As cool as turtles are.
Oh, we're not.
No.
Really?
Really?
Oh.
Gosh.
So, of course, the
okay.
turtles also had their languages
Who
confused
knew?
at the Tower of Babel. Which maybe they did.
Hey, we don't know.
Bodie
we
didn't
don't
say
know.
they didn't.
I wasn't there.
That's true. I wasn't there either. Lieutenant Math Navigator says Eastern Box Turtle is the best North American turtle. I don't know that I want to play favorites. They are certainly a cool North American turtle. Look, people. I'll be honest. I never had a whole lot of interest in, or not interested, but I never had a lot of oh yeah, North America is a great place for reptile diversity. But on thinking about it, it's actually a pretty cool place for reptile diversity. I mean, North America has a lot of cool stuff, like Gila monsters, Mexican beaded lizards, big old snapping turtles, alligators, even in parts of Florida, crocodiles. There's a lot of very interesting and somewhat dangerous reptile diversity here in North America.
You know what else the LA Basin does not have? Water moccasins.
I mean, that's fair.
People are always like, "Oh, I love swimming in lakes." I'm like, I don't. Water moccasins live there.
Flavius Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, for $10 says, "For a good stream, starting from the beginning, and an F-bomb right there." Yes. Yep, we did get an immediate F-bomb. Well, not quite immediate, but almost immediate. Anyway, we are here to talk about Bodie Hodge's book about the Tower of Babel. We're hopefully going to finish it. By the way, you guys...
Tower of Babel. This is it. Team OMB got it. Tower of Babel is why the Ninja Turtles use surfer speak.
Okay. Philipunk, who's been a member for 23 months, says, "Does cussing count in Spanish? That would be funny." I haven't actually decided about that yet. That's a good question. I don't know. Anyway.
I can absolutely do that.
So Bodie is here, been complaining about the religion of humanism, which is weird because it's not necessarily a religion. Now, some people, when asked what their religion is, will say, "I'm a secular humanist," but it's not really identifiable as a religion in most of the ways that people normally identify religions. However, that being said, since religions are basically undefinable, since traditionally it basically just comes down to anything that functions enough like Protestant Christianity for Protestants to recognize it as a religion. Okay, but once you decide to deprioritize Protestant Christianity, because, maybe you're not a Protestant, or maybe you're a Protestant who realizes that the whole world doesn't revolve around your Christianity.
Gasp.
Yeah. Then it becomes a lot harder to define what counts as a religion. So
okay, couple things.
Whole idea is just I mean it's just a whole bunch of cope. And I came to this realization a long time ago when Christian philosophers in particular really started pushing this idea of worldview as a direct equivalent to religion.
Yeah, that is one of the things, right?
This is just a means of watering down and diluting the idea, excuse me, of religions so much that you can then effectively select your target, and it can be anything.
Well, that's actually part of the strategy, right? Because AIA likes to call all sorts of things that are very obviously not religions in order to level the playing field. Because fundamentally, they know that religions are not something that are easy to say, "Oh, well, this is definitely the right thing." And in many cases, it's not even clear that right or wrong is a category that you can apply to some certain religions, right? Like, if you're going to say, oh, some religion that is an orthopraxic, or, concerned with our orthopraxy, correct practice, but doesn't really have a lot of, required beliefs or any, which is a fair number of religions. Being right or wrong isn't even a category, right? Can you tell someone who's, going through rituals as a result of, a concern for community and cultural continuity with their ancestors and things like that, but who doesn't actually really believe in any supernatural claims, can you tell that they're wrong or right when they go and perform rituals at, say, a temple or something? No. What does that even mean in that context, right? The vast majority of Japanese people claim not to believe in any supernatural anything, right? But they still go to Shinto shrines before tests or marriages or whatever. They still burn incense. They still go and have Buddhist funerals.
And you know what?
What does that mean?
Good.
I don't know.
Because people like feeling calm and nice and centered. And who cares? Mind your own damn business.
But because Bodie wants to bring everything down to the level of, well, I mean, we can't necessarily prove it, and the government definitely shouldn't be taking sides. They want to say all sorts of things, like science are actually just religions.
Yes.
That's why they'll call evolutionism a religion, which is why I have a mocking
ridiculous.
our Darwin prayer on the channel, because it's very obviously not. Which, by the way, no, is not loaded in right now. I have not got around to that, so I can't play it currently.
Please in the chat. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator says, I put my foot about 18 inches away from a cottonmouth when I was a kid, and that is the sound of me screaming. And right after that, Triceratops reminded me of a story. Just saying like, oh, where's the context? God, I hate it when the chat auto updates. Oh, things I don't have to worry about in Connecticut. Unfortunately, the trade-off is ticks. Well, I was at a campground near Baltimore this past weekend, and I missed this chat very much because I wanted to scream about the ticks.
Mhm.
I grew up in the woods. I know how to deal with ticks, and people in our like seminar group were like, "Oh my God, what do I do if I find a tick?" And I was like, "Oh, here's what you do," because that's just common knowledge where I'm from. So I became the person who had to help people at the camp with their ticks, and I came home and I was like, "Damn, I'm glad to be away from all that stuff because I don't want to live in a place where ticks are common." And wouldn't you know it, I was getting in the shower like the day after I came back, and I found one on my hip, and I screamed and I cried because this is trauma for me. I didn't want to deal
Wow.
with it. I know. I was just like, no, like it's fixed, but I just
Wow.
It's not
people
still there.
people need to understand that there are so many reasons that I got the hell out of Alabama.
All right. Well, now Shanti has Lyme
So many.
disease, so you know.
I can never have red meat again. No, I would rather die.
All right. So, let's start with when Christians say, and Kip, you were reading that last time. I double checked. So I think we should start with
All right.
Shanti.
And I wasn't here last week, so that's
You were
also
not.
a thing. I really did miss everybody. Like this is, I felt like a part of my routine was
Oh,
gone. So.
drink for Mothra. Mothra's here.
Heard Mothra.
Oh, and then she turned off for some reason. Hillpunk for
Hillpunk.
$5 says, a Protestant that realizes the world doesn't revolve around your religion. When you find one of those,
Gasp.
you should try your hand at unicorn hunting.
Jeez.
I mean, I guess it depends on exactly how Protestant you think that the Anglican communion is, but you could argue Maddie. I'd also argue Bent. Bent is a Protestant. I don't think he thinks the entire
Megan
world
Lewis.
Megan Lewis. There you go. So
Yeah.
like, it's actually not that hard to find.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, because the theological beliefs are a central element in every religion ever. Yeah, that, which is not how all
Right.
religions work.
No, that's not how ours work. Okay. Should I begin with the paragraph that says when Christians say?
Yes.
Okay. All right, here we go. When Christians say the account at Babel is mythology, as well as the rest of Genesis 1 through 11, which is common today, they are saying that they are above God.
No,
What
they are
they're
not.
saying.
They are not saying that. That is not what they are saying.
I would love for
I mean-
Bodie to ask anyone who understands that the Tower of Babel didn't happen and
my
is
God.
a Protestant or a Christian or something like that, and ask them, do you think you're above God? I can guarantee you that none
They
of
would
them
say
will
no.
say yes.
100%. 100% of the respondents to that question would say no.
And then you know what Bodie would do?
Megan Lewis would
100%.
destroy this dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know what
And
Bodie
she would
say,
be
though.
nice while she did it.
But you know what Bodie would say?
Yes.
He would say that they're just repressing the truth and unrighteousness.
Oh,
And they
God.
actually do
As
believe
if
that
that's
they're
a thing
higher
you
than
can
God.
do.
I-
Ugh.
I mean, I guess you could say that that's just what lying is. I don't even know.
I don't care. Okay. Unbeknownst to them, they are actually destroying the very foundation of the gospel that they profess to believe. No, they're not. They're undermining their own position, and so it is self-refuting. No, it's not. See, this is the thing Bodhi doesn't understand. A lot of Christians are just normal. They don't
I would
form their
argue most.
identity around this has to be literally, actually, historically true. That's not how their identity is formed. Unlike Bodhi, whose entire world crumbles into tiny little pieces if you even begin to threaten the fact that he thinks that this is, like, actually history.
Star Song, who's been a member for 12 months and is at the Tetrapod level, says, gave my brother his birthday gift. Well, I hope your brother has a wonderful birthday, Star Song, and that he enjoys the gift.
Apparently it was Paula
My
Gia's
friend Chris's birthday today, too.
yesterday.
It was Paula Gia's
Oh,
birthday. I
wow.
think it was Paula Gia's birthday yesterday, and I'm sorry, what was that, Fish? Whose?
My friend Chris, his birthday is today.
Ah, well, happy birthday, Chris.
The only
Mine
reason
is-
I remember that is because we were talking about possibly going to the Kendrick Lamar show tonight. I cannot afford even the cheap tickets, and I'm very sad about that because I like Kendrick Lamar a lot, and I would love to see him here in his hometown. So I'm a sad.
My birthday is going to be in 3 weeks, and I will be doing rather than just a regular Dapper Reacts. There's going to be a nice big old birthday stream. So, yeah.
So
blackjack and
the
hookers.
only people
I didn't say that.
who give performances in their hometown, which happen to be my hometown, is Chilliwack. And I don't have any interest in seeing them.
Sorry.
Trillion Waters in the chat asks, do any other religions besides Jewish, Christian, Muslim use the Book of Genesis? Yes.
I mean, it's
Sorry, what was the
definitely
question?
The Baha'i,
Do any religions?
Druze, Samaritans,
well, so
Judeans.
Yeah.
the Samaritans definitely. The degree to which the Druze consider the books of the Bible to be authoritative is probably going to be more similar to what Muslims do, which is to say that there was an authoritative version of the Torah, but we don't have access to it.
Using
anymore.
it is the question, not authoritative.
Oh, okay,
Just
yeah.
Using Genesis.
Yeah, if those stories are at all part of your religion, then that's going to also expand to like Rastafari,
Rastafari.
the Druze. I mean, there are connections with the Mandaeans, although they're
Yazidi.
yeah, to some extent the Yazidi. It's with the Yazidi and the Mandaeans, it's going to be significantly less than the other groups, especially since they have very different conceptions of creation and what that means than most of those other groups do.
I have to say this. I'm sorry, just returning to the text here. My ongoing impression as I continue in this space is that Christian apologetics is just a massive exercise in projection, and
A lot of it.
this is not curing my impression of that here.
I mean,
Yeah.
even
Right?
among
Like,
Christian
it's
apologists,
just-
Bodie is one of the lowest tier members of that profession, shall we say?
Sure, but I honestly, with the shit that I deal with, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It really is.
Claude Simeon for $5 says, former evangelical, it was easier to throw any baby out with the bathwater, switch to materialism, but trying to appreciate transcendent experiences. And that's the thing, right? People have actual transcendent experiences. The degree to which that corresponds to some kind of beyond the natural world reality, I don't know. There's a good argument that it's not at all. But that doesn't make the experience fake.
Is this my brain chemicals doing cool stuff? Or is it like real? I don't know, but it's fun.
Yep. And it doesn't change that it happened. And it doesn't change that might give you a new perspective on the world. And that you had that experience is valid. And it is perfectly okay for you to continue acknowledging that and bringing that into how you go forward interacting with the world. Right? Like if you have a transcendent experience and you experience like the oneness of all reality, and you decide that for that reason you're going to be less of a dick. All right, good. Cool.
Awesome.
That's great.
Hey, that's what happened to David Lynch.
All right, so let's keep going here.
Okay.
For example,
Today, there is a trend to follow humanism, and humanists are systematically trying to force humanism into public venues.
I'm not even sure what it would look like to force humanism into public venues. Because,
I'm also trying to find out why that's bad, because being not a dick and looking to help humanity flourish is objectively a good thing.
Because Bodie has previously already defined humanism as a necessarily anti-theist proposition.
Oh, of course.
For Bodie, humanism isn't just the idea of encouraging human flourishing and having a consequentialist ethical framework, which is sort of the most basic level that I usually find when humanists themselves are defining what it means to be a humanist, like self-professed humanists. Those are usually the two most consistent things, are a focus on human flourishing and a consequentialist ethical philosophy. But also, there are a lot of humanists who then point out that this is a secular belief and that we reject a belief in deities or whatever. And so because that is a strain in humanism, and because people in that strain are also often prominent voices in humanism, Bodie has decided that is in fact what humanism is, and therefore other people who are just concerned with human flourishing and an ethical framework that works for them, no, you're also atheists. And not just that, but you're trying to destroy Christianity and send people to hell. But Fits of Mitochondrial Eve Rage for $5 says,
Mitochondrial.
look,
Ugh, that
you've
video.
seen the video where he says mitochondrial something like 25 times.
Uh-huh.
Kip, do you know the difference between mitochondria and miters?
He's like,
I
what are
feel
you
like
talking about?
So sorry. I was just I sometimes I just stop listening to you guys. But
Dare.
what I'm sorry.
There's soapboxing. I'm tuning out.
Yeah, I have 3 children. There's some conditioning behind that. Sorry.
Thanks, Dad.
Miters, as in so like the chess piece. Is that what we're talking about?
No, miters are
Miters
not
are hats.
chests.
Oh.
They're hats, yeah.
Yeah.
They're hats traditionally
Right,
worn by
okay.
Christian
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
bishops.
Yes, though
Yeah.
also chess pieces. So yes,
What?
I am aware of those.
Not chess pieces,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yeah, they are. So, but
No.
yes,
No.
yes.
Tell you what.
No.
What
Whatever.
context do you think
We're
miter is a
all-
chess piece?
We're all talking about the same thing, and maybe it's the time I spent in Europe. I don't know. It might be that, but we're talking about the same thing. Yes, I know what miters are, and I think I have an idea what mitochondria is. It's a science. It's a biology, celly. Sciencey
powerhouse
DNA.
of the cell.
It's a thing that happens inside
something like
cells.
that, right? Like I knew. Yeah, it was. I knew it was something like that, right? So I'm aware.
Well,
that
there's a
those are
guy,
different things.
Dan Biddle,
Mm.
who consistently pronounces the word mitochondria and mitochondrial as mitochondria and mitochondrial. And it is
Okay,
very weird.
I figured it out. Wayward Scythe figured it out for me. Kip was saying chess as the game, not chess.
What?
As in
Oh,
your
yeah.
torso.
THESS?
I was not saying chest.
I heard
No.
chest every single time.
You heard.
We
chest,
heard
really?
chest, and that's why we were like,
God,
no, miter is literally not a chest piece.
But it is the
But you were
basis
saying
for the
chess
shape
as
of
in
the
the
bishop
game.
piece.
Yes.
Yeah, the bishop piece is
yes.
shaped kind of like a miter because it's the bishop
Distinction is
piece.
important.
Although I would also argue that the queen or the king piece is also kind of shaped a bit like a miter because it's based on Western
Sure.
European crowns, which are also similar in
Yes.
shape to Eastern European Eastern Christian miters, which is confusing because it turns out both miters and crowns are kind of descended from the same headpieces. Anyway, Fits of Mitochondrial Rage for $5 says, my daughter's director at church is looking into using Bag of Dicks VBS for next year. Ooh. I foresee unspoken tension ahead between me and my young Earth creationist wife. That is tough, and I wish I had advice for you, but I don't know what to say to that because it's... Look, I've never been in a relationship with someone who had a very fundamentally different view of, like, just what science is and try to navigate around that. Never mind having that person be someone who I'm trying to raise a child with. So, like, I don't know what the solution is there. I'm sorry that that's happening. Oh, there's Mothra again.
And again.
I don't know. I mean, I'd say, like, if your daughter asks you direct questions about science, certainly don't lie to her about science. Like, but other than that, I don't know. I don't have a good option there. It sucks, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. But hey, let's see what else we got here.
Oh, this is gonna get good. I did some Googling in the background. Okay. Today there's a trend to follow humanism, and humanists are systematically trying to force humanism into public venues. For example, John Dunphy, he should have clarified it's John J. Dunphy, because John Dunphy is a playwright. This other person seems to be different. John J. Dunphy wrote, I am convinced that the battle for humankind's future must be waged and won in the public school classroom by teachers who correctly perceive their role as the proselytizers of a new faith, a religion of humanity that recognizes and respects the spark of what theologians call divinity in every human being. These teachers must embody the same selfless dedication as the most rabid fundamentalist preachers, for they will be ministers of another sort. Utilizing a classroom instead of a pulpit, convey humanist values in whatever subject they teach, regardless of the educational level, preschool, daycare, or large state university. The classroom must and will become an arena of conflict between the old and the new. The rotting corpse of Christianity, together with all its adjacent evils and misery, and the new faith of humanism.
All right, we got a super chat here. Meats Permit Tat for $2 says, I heard Chess Kip. Their reaction was confusing. And hey, you know what? I fully acknowledge that Kip probably said chess and that Vishanti and I both heard chess and were wrong. It turns out that sometimes miscommunications happen, and that's okay. You just got to clear it up, right?
Yep.
That's my advice. Is if you think that there's a good chance that all that happened is a sincere miscommunication, don't get angry. Just back up. Be clear about what you mean. Let the other person be clear about what they interpreted. Correct any misunderstanding and move forward. I've definitely seen people get heated over misunderstandings, and it's not worth it. Star Song for $10 says, I have learned recently that the Bible talks about the Christian God being more than one God, El, Yahweh, and others. Yet the Bible seems to have been edited to meld them into one being. So that is a complicated subject.
Welcome to the field of critical Bible scholarship.
Yeah, and even that idea there is already simplifying it to a great degree. And yeah, it turns out that for one thing, the Bible never says that other gods don't really exist. And also, yeah, the aspects of the God of Israel that are seen in a lot of the Bible are amalgams of the aspects of other gods that have existed, bringing in various attributes of various pantheons. Like Yahweh at some point takes on a lot of the sort of divine profile of Baal, thereby setting him up as a direct. Yeah, so like there is a lot of
like a
conflation.
snowball. It accretes
I see what you
different
did
things
there.
as it rolls.
Now, I do have to say that we have
a
110
snowball.
people watching,
Yeah.
but only 48 people have hit that like button, which means that I hate to say it, but I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserved. So hit the like button so you don't keep getting bilboed.
So, okay, this quote that Bodie has, I think I know which blog post he copy pasted it off of, but I do want to quote at least one other thing from it. The John J. Dunphy that Bodie is super mad and coping and seething about. He's mad because the author is not a big fan of like fundamentalist Christianity and all the historical evils it's wrought. He said, Dunphy, quote, "It has been and remains an extremely dangerous book," referring to the Bible. "It and the various Christian churches, which are parasitic upon it, have been directly responsible for most of the wars, persecutions, and outrages which humankind has perpetuated upon itself over the past 2,000 years.
Well, that's just
That's a
historically
bit of
inaccurate.
Yeah, that's a way overstated Western-centric BS argument. However,
there's been lots of wars outside of any Christian knowledge.
the global South and the East and South Asia exist, but
no, only Europe
I see
and
where
Mediterranean.
I see what vibe he's going with here. Like, a lot of Western colonialism was perpetuated by Christian nations in the name of Christianity, in addition to their wealth extraction.
Mm-hmm. It was often the excuse they gave for why their wealth extraction was okay.
Correct. So, yes, I understand that feeling. We shouldn't, oversimplify it. But, yeah, Bodie's mad because it's like, you're threatening my Christian dominionism. Like, okay, concede.
Great. Cool. And, look, Dunphy is clearly wrong about the degree to which Christianity has been the cause of conflicts worldwide. For one thing, many times Christians have gotten into conflicts that didn't really have much to do with Christianity. In fact, most wars in Europe throughout the Middle Ages, of which there were plenty, were not fought over religious differences because both sides had the exact same religion.
Yep.
They were fought over things like territory and weird conflicting loyalties in like the feudalistic chain of command and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then of course, Christianity was a convenient excuse for misappropriating the resources and even like lives, freedom of people around the world.
Humans are really good at using any available excuse to justify their aggression.
True. But all we had to do to see that people will reach for other excuses is to look at the colonial history of places like Japan and China, which did not use
Yeah.
Christianity as an excuse, but found other excuses instead.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
China's current occupation and abuse of Tibet doesn't become better because they're not doing it for Jesus. Like, that doesn't help.
Exactly.
So,
And it doesn't not exist.
Right. So, like, yeah, Dunphy, I disagree with Dunphy that, like, Christianity is the root of all evil in the world and the source of all conflict. It's clearly not. However, you also can't ignore the times when it has been, and you don't get to just brush that away as if
It's
it
like-
didn't happen.
Tell me you live in the West without telling me you
Right?
live in the West.
Seriously.
Yes.
Joshua Geese for $5
Yes.
says, one more towards the F-bomb pass. Thank you very much. Dr.
Hooray!
Dino, who's been a member for 11 months. Really? Has it been that long?
Hooray!
Goodness. Making a presentation.
Wow.
Thanks for the company. Oh, you are welcome. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $2 says, don't forget battling over stolen buckets.
Oh my goodness.
You know what that reminds me of? Is the immovable ladder.
Yep, I was just about to say the immovable ladder.
Skip, do you know about the immovable
Get out of my
ladder?
brain.
I don't know any. I don't know. I'm
Okay,
I'm,
so
yeah,
you know
I'm
that-
You
out
have
of
to
the
tell
loop.
him.
Do you know about that? You know that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a thing that exists in Jerusalem, right?
I've been inside the
Okay.
Church of the
Well,
Holy
there you go.
Sepulchre. Yes.
Well, so you
Right
also
on.
probably know that it's jointly administered by the Oriental
Yes.
Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox, and the Roman Catholic Church, right?
yes.
Well, what that means is that any changes that are made in any spaces that are not exclusively
Right.
controlled by one of those has to be agreed upon by all of them, right?
Yep.
Well, about a century ago, there was a guy who was doing some repair work on the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and he left a small wooden ladder at a window where he was doing some repair work. And the problem is that the room that this window abuts, or is a hole in the wall of, I guess, it's actually not clear, according to any of the churches, whose territory that is, or whether it's supposed to be jointly owned territory, which means that no one is allowed to move that ladder. And so that ladder has been
Which
there
is amazing.
for a
That's
very
kind
long
of
time.
amazing, isn't it?
Except for one small instance, I think in like the early 20th or maybe the mid 20th century, where someone like broke onto the compound to move the ladder as a protest as to how ridiculous all of this stuff is. And so he was arrested for trespassing, and the ladder was put back exactly where it was. Because no one is allowed to move it. Yeah. So,
It's wild.
and I will agree that it is a bit ridiculous, and I do think they should all just get together and say, okay, fine, we can take the ladder down.
But
But on the other hand, if you were to give control of the church to any of those groups, there's a real chance that it would result in excluding worshippers from other groups from going,
Yeah.
100%.
as well as
Yes.
excluding other groups from performing various rituals there that they
Yes.
have been accustomed to doing,
In-
which is also not okay.
In my non-qualified opinion, they could get the council together, the three groups, and just say, let's agree to remove it together.
Yeah.
Since we can't decide who
they could.
administers it, let's
You
all
have
agree.
to think that's probably
But, I'm not.
there's been some you have to think that this is something that has happened in the past where they have actually all gotten together and attempted to resolve the latter issue, but the fact that they can't, I think, says a
assume
lot.
nothing.
Look, I'm not
The degree to which people who
would.
administer things
fair.
will wash their
That is
hands of
fair.
it so they don't have to deal with
Sure.
it is
Yeah, there's that too.
well documented.
My
That's
guess
true.
is that most
Yeah.
of them just don't care, because to be frank, while it's somewhat silly, the ladder isn't hurting anyone.
Yeah.
Just there.
It's just sitting in a window. It's not
Is this
nothing bad is
the-
happening as a result of this ladder.
Is this the hill that we're gonna die on?
Right. And the answer is probably
Yeah.
just like, who cares? Just leave it.
We got other shit
We
to do.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Also, Alex Sparkle says, do they have a janitor there? I actually don't know how the place gets cleaned. I assume that there's probably some kind of schedule and that it's been agreed upon by the three groups, because they can decide on things, right? Like, they have managed to do things like move furniture around and stuff without that becoming a thing. Although sometimes someone has in fact moved furniture and it has become a thing. There was a famous instance where a visiting monk decided to shift a chair a little bit, become more comfortable, and that caused an uproar because that was moving something without the consent of the all three groups. Becca Chasiniano for 18 months says, the ladder has become a tourist attraction. There's another point there. Like, people might actually be pouring money into the upkeep
Yeah.
of this just by
Right.
going to see the ladder.
Just to ensure.
So,
Yeah.
like, maybe it's a good reason to keep the ladder. But all right, let's keep going, and then we're going to take a break in not too long. And I'm realizing how
Okay.
optimistic it was
This
to
is
think
really
we might get
ridiculous.
through the conclusion.
See, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have another week of this. It's okay.
Dr. Eugenie Scott is a signer of the religious document, the Humanist Manifesto 3.
Calling that a religious document is a stretch. I'm going to take a drink.
Remember
That's
that
pretty
time you said that they just call stuff religion so they can bring it down to their level? Oh my
Mhm.
god, this is so funny.
Yep, that's exactly what's going
And
on.
she heads up the National
Yeah.
Center for Science Education, which is a leading humanist organization for teaching evolution in public schools.
Okay,
Oh,
first, no, it's not. The the National Center for Science Education is strictly a pro-science education group. That many of their members are humanists does not make it a humanist organization, right? Just like if you decided to get a bunch of people together to start a soup kitchen that doesn't do any preaching, doesn't hand out flyers, it just gives people who need it some soup. But it just so happens that because of who you are, most of the people who are working there happen to go to your church. That doesn't make that soup kitchen a religious soup kitchen. It's just that it so happens that a lot of the people who are there and somewhat perhaps motivated by their religious position. And similarly, even if humanism were a religion, the fact that a large number of the leadership of a pro-science education foundation are humanists doesn't make it a humanist organization. People can have more than one aspect to their lives. That's just a thing that can happen.
Okay.
See, Bodie's doing the same thing here, and this is where my comments about projection are valid here, right? Where there are myself included. I've never read the Humanist Manifesto 3. I would, in certain contexts, call myself a humanist. In the same way that not everyone who identifies as a Christian fits the narrow category that Bodie
given how narrow,
wants to assign to it.
Yep.
That would be
Right?
virtually every Christian.
He is.
If we're
This
going
is
as narrow
where
as
the
Bodie.
just listen. Just this is where. See, this is where the projection comes in. He is assigning these categories to his own. He's got his own ideas about what this means on either sides of this, and is projecting this on everyone. It's annoying.
Mhm.
It's just annoying.
Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says the Star Trek Endurance Group isn't a science communication group; it's a TTRPG group. There's another good example, right? A large portion of the people who are on my Star Trek Endurance show over on Top Hats Off are science communicators of some stripe or another, or otherwise, I'll stick with it, right? So like Jordan is, I am, Chesh is, although perhaps it's not as big of a focus for her, but it still is a focus. She has a lot of shows about science. Maddie certainly is. Craig is. That's most of us. We're not there to teach you science. That doesn't mean that we don't get nerdy, because we do, but it's also Star Trek, so that's appropriate. But yeah, our purpose there is not to teach you science. In fact, we frequently have things happen that make no scientific sense whatsoever. Because you know what? It's Star Trek. We're not there to do science stuff. All right, so let's see. She says. What does she say?
She says, I don't care what she says. Somebody said a thing and he doesn't like it. What does this have to do with the Tower of Babel?
That's a good
Humanists
question.
are engaging in forced humanism. I don't care. I say to you, Peter, you were the right. What does any of this have to do with the Tower of Babel? I don't care about anything on this page.
Well, it's the very last bit, so let's get through it. And then
I found the most effective allies for evolution are people in the faith community, one clergyman with a backward collars, were two biologists at a school board meeting any day to the second power. Humanists are engaged in a conscious effort to force humanism on everyone. If the church gives in, it will be destroyed from within. It is time to recognize these attacks and counter them, as God says. And I say to you that Peter, on this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. Matthew 16:18. Christian must recognize the humanist attack and stand firm on the authority of the word of God.
Okay, I have a question. I actually don't understand how this Matthew quote ties into the rest of this chapter. Like, what's...
Because we're under attack. The gates of hell won't prevail against attacks on the church.
Well, then what's Bodie worried about?
That's it, right?
Right? This is my thing. It's like, if you think that your story ends with God winning, why do you care what anybody's doing? It's gonna fail. Stop getting your panties in a twist.
I think this is
They're trying to attack the church.
It's a messed up way too, right? Of understanding this quote from Matthew 16,
Uh-huh.
verse 18. Because what's as is often pointed out, the gates aren't attacking anyone, right? The promotion here is that it's actually the gates of hell that are on the defensive. They're the ones that are under attack by the church. That's what's going on.
It's almost
in
like that's
this
the
passage
entire
for-
point of the Easter story, is in fact that the
Weird.
gates of hell
Yeah.
are under attack by
storming
Jesus.
the gates of hell.
Uh-huh.
Which and for Bodie to be in the in the forces that are storming the gates of hell and going, oh my God, they're attacking me. Yeah, like this
It's
is
literally
isn't
projection.
it?
It's just so
It's
ridiculous.
it 100% is.
Yeah. I also have to point out that a lot of this stuff that happens, especially from like evangelical Protestants in the United States, is feeling attacked because the person that you've been mercilessly beating decided to slap you in the face once.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's like,
Super
I'm
chat.
sorry, but that's you can take that as an attack, and in a certain level of analysis, you're not wrong, but to say that you're a poor victim who's under merciless attack by someone else just isn't true. That's just one person slightly fighting back against your horrible treatment of them. Star Song for $5 says, I had to quit calling myself a Christian. I became convinced that the creation story, Noah's Ark, and the Exodus were false based on evidence. Well, I will say two things. One, hey, if that makes you decide that you're no longer a Christian, absolutely fine. But I will also point out that many Christians are also okay with those things not actually being historical. And so if you don't want to stop being a Christian after discovering that that's the case, that is also okay. Because I am not here to tell people whether or not they should be Christians.
As I said earlier,
much
you
of
don't have to make your Christian identity solely based on this is literally true and actually happened historically. That you don't have to do that. You can say, hey, I'm a Christian because I do what Christians do, and I use texts that Christians use, and I practice the holidays that Christians practice. Like, you don't have to go fundamentalist with it. So,
Fearmonger for $5 says, oh, Bodie, we wouldn't happen to be projecting now, would we? With a bunch of deep Darwins. Yeah, we absolutely would be. All right, so do y'all need a break, or should we keep going?
I need a quick break.
All right. Then we will take a quick break, and I will hope that my intermission video works. Because again, new computer, and if we get to the 30, which we still have over an hour on, so I think we have a fair chance. I'll give some updates about new computer and how it's working out, and I have had a few problems here, although it's been much smoother than I was expecting. We can talk about all that if we get to that. All right, so let's go to intermission.
Captain's log, stardate 60046.3. We have received an urgent message from Admiral Talara of Starfleet Command. We are ordered to redirect the ship to the colony on Carina 7 in the Beta Quadrant. The colony's governor, Sarita Sebastian, is reporting a series of strange phenomena that threaten the colony's safety. She states the children born on Carina 7 are aging rapidly. The native flora and fauna are growing rapidly and just as rapidly withering, and structures that should have lasted decades are falling apart. The Kong Z is the closest ship to the colony with quantum slipstream drive, and it is imperative that we discover a solution to the colony's problems.
Carina 7 is a warm M-class planet as near to Earth in terms of environment as it could be hoped. The planet was settled a few years earlier by a group of mostly winemakers, and it is a vital part of the Federation's strategy to improve relations with the Ferengi Alliance. The wine is sold to Ferengi merchants, and the latinum is used by the Federation in dealings with polities that still use currency-based economics. The rapid aging phenomenon threatens this key strategic world, and if the crew cannot solve it, the colony is doomed. Is it a natural phenomenon? Or is it being orchestrated by unseen actors? Or is it perhaps a secret third thing? Find out next time on Star Trek Endurance, only on the Top Hats Off channel.
Hello, we are back. First things first, I want to read a super chat from Star Song. It says, I was raised young Earth creationist and Christian nationalist. I'm aware that others don't believe that what I was raised to believe. I don't have a problem with that. Oh, I don't think you did. I just wanted to make sure that perhaps someone out there who was thinking, well, I feel like my Christianity isn't defined by a literal Genesis blood. I wanted to make sure that that person doesn't feel like I'm ignoring their existence or making them feel invalid by simply not pointing out that they are also good to go. So we are back, and I want to say first, why is this off center? Anyway,
Terrible.
So, I know it is. First, I want to say we're really close. We only need 11 more super chats to get to that free F-bomb fast, and a little update about the computer. So thank you very much. Also, this channel is almost entirely supported directly through the support of my viewers, whether it be through super chats, super stickers, super thanks, gifted memberships, joining the membership program yourself, or Patreon. All of those are important ways that you can support the channel. The Patreon, if you want to do that, starts at $1 a month. You can get a 15% discount for going annually. So the cheapest way to support is to just get the 1-year Patreon membership, which is less than $11 and gets you a full year of access to my Discord server, as well as early access to my scripted videos. The membership also gives you access to that same Discord server, as well as early access to videos. It also gives you the channel emojis. That starts at $1.99 a month. It's a little bit more because it gives you a little bit more stuff, especially in chat. So I mean, that's only at the lowest tier, though. Is it a little bit more? The higher tiers are exactly the same price. And so if that's not your thing, you don't want to do a monthly or an annual thing, there are also other things. I have a merch store linked down below. Also, Kip and Vishanti both have Patreons, and also myself and Vishanti have Amazon wish lists if you want to get us a little gift. For both of us, a lot of what that is just stuff that will brighten our days, or, weeks or months, things that are nice to have.
Put some practical things on there.
Yeah, there are some practical things on mine too. But
Those brighten your day, don't they?
They do, actually, yeah. Like there's the microphone I'm using right now was from my wish list. I use it all the time, as you can obviously tell. The microphone I was using earlier was also from my wish list, but I don't use it as a microphone because it's from my webcam, which is what was going on earlier. That was the webcam mic, which I don't ever use. But the webcam itself was also a gift from the wish list.
I went in to my settings and physically disabled my webcam mic because I was tired of Discord and other things trying to make it like.
Yeah, I should probably do that. I should probably do that.
I never want that.
Dutch Domestic T-Rex Student Kit says Dapper wants more rice. So here's the deal with rice, right? Rice is one of the practical things I have on my wish list, and I will not stop you from getting it for me. However, if you see it on low priority, what that means is I don't need rice. That will change. Unless, of course, people keep sending me rice. But yeah, you can send me rice if you want to. I just don't currently need it.
It's always just going to be on low priority, dude.
I was just thinking of the massive pot of rice that's sitting in my fridge right now that I'm like, oh yeah, I should continue to eat through that.
Yeah.
I'm so hungry.
Well, let's get through this conclusion part that is eventually going to come up.
The conclusion?
Yes.
All right. Good. This is so dumb, guys. Because can we just point out that I think maybe like the last chapter was a conclusion.
Yes.
To the book. I'm looking just at the title of this chapter, and it sort of feels like this could have been a final chapter to be followed by
like they should have swapped
a conclusion.
Chapter 28 and 29.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, if he had, would we have noticed? Like,
probably not.
It could just be that they're both shit.
Well, I mean, that's the whole book. But here we go.
Yes, fair.
Chapter 29, Conclusion, Seeing Christ at Babel. In this book, there has been an immense amount of history and genealogies. Yes, kid?
So did you? So I'm being a pedantic asshole, but I mean, were it me, I would not. There's no need to. If you're writing a conclusion, it's not really a chapter. It's not.
I agree.
This is not chapter 29. This is.
It says it's chapter 29 right there, though.
But I mean, if it's so, this means that the title of chapter 29 is conclusion, because conclusion is usually this is the identifier of the component within the book that you happen to be writing. But so you don't. I'm sorry. I'm overthinking this, aren't I? And it's making me sad.
That's okay. I get it.
And angry.
I get it. Lieutenant Matthew Navigator for $5 says, pro tip, don't take the large quantities of rice on a boat and allow it to get wet. It's hazardous to your health. True. The technical term is drowning. Yeah, rice expands a lot when it gets water. Yeah. So, like, it's also why you shouldn't feed raw rice to birds. Because they will eat a whole bunch of it, and then it will expand inside of them, and that's bad. All right.
I think
ready?
This is a fair point from Maya. She says Bodie lies a lot.
It's true.
So she's just operating on the assumption that there's more after this.
Yeah.
Well, chapter 29, conclusion. Seeing Christ at Babel, which is weird because it was a very long time before
Question
Christ.
Seeing Christ at Babel?
In this book, there has been an immense amount of history and genealogies, and they answered questions to fend off attacks on the authorities of God's word. Okay, I'm just going to let that go. But I'm also going to say, I forgot to tell everyone,
survive.
I forgot to tell everyone, I am drinking a prickly pear Tom Collins, where I've replaced the simple syrup with prickly pear syrup. So
Me.
Yeah. And Kip, you're drinking coffee? What are you drinking?
I'm still drinking coffee. Think I'm gonna buy wine today.
Nice. Fish, what are you drinking?
Yum. Sprite.
Nice.
Because I drink all my coffee.
And although this helps us get into the Word of God and learn from the wisdom of its pages, actually, I have not seen Bodhi take a single, like, moral or ethical or any kind of conclusion that would actually be useful out of this. Let's not forget the reason for it all. Christ.
So hold on a second, though, Dapper. Like, just reflecting back on this book, I mean, how much time have we actually spent in the text?
Almost none.
It doesn't feel like there's been much.
Almost none.
Of any getting into the Word of God and learning from the wisdom of its pages.
None.
No.
There's just been Bodhi fantasizing and making, like, stream of consciousness word associations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, Tuvalu. That kind of sounds like Tubal. Okay, great. That's cool. Star Song for $20 says, at Dapper Dinosaur, contribution to a room full of rice for you. You know, at one point, the kitchen basically was a room full of rice. At one point, I think there were at maximum, like, 5 15-pound bags of rice in the kitchen. We didn't have a place to put all of it. A bunch of it just went on the counter in the bag, sealed. And there were just bags of sealed, 15-pound bags of rice sealed on the kitchen counter.
Living the dream.
Let's see. I'll keep going. That was not very long. I don't feel like it's appropriate to pass it off quite yet. Lord. What? Why is this?
Lord.
What does that mean?
Okay.
What is that?
I don't. It's like a section. I don't know.
This is articulating how I feel right now.
Lord. Yeah. All right. For $2, Lieutenant Matt the Navigator says, to the rice vault. Yeah, I might need to get a rice vault.
Yeah.
That's what I'll put on my wish list next, is a
No.
rice vault.
That's what I want.
5 times in Genesis 11, 1 through 9, is the word Lord. Weird way to phrase it, but whatever. It is denoted in caps in most translations. Well, small caps, but okay. There's a difference between capital letters and small capital letters. This name for God is Yahweh or Jehovah. It's definitely not Jehovah.
It's not
Bodhi.
Jehovah.
I'm going to take a drink for it. It's maybe Jehovah.
Continue.
Oh,
Because
which is a
talked
very-
about this. No,
Which is a variant form of Yahweh. What?
Yahweh?
It is not.
No.
Yahweh,
Taking 2 drinks.
Yahweh. Remember that in Hebrew the vowels did not exist, just consonants.
I'm taking a drink.
So one can see how people varied the pronunciation, especially in the past millennium or so when people apply. So
What?
Does he think that the vowel points were just applied at random?
Just in the past millennium. Just in the past millennium.
Hey,
So
Okay.
Pro tip to everyone: languages that don't usually write out full vowels for all of the vowel sounds still have vowels. I am not aware of any human language that doesn't have vowels. There are languages in which some syllables do not have a vowel, right?
yes.
The various Caucasian languages, by which I actually mean the languages around, in and around the Caucasus Mountains, not just white people languages. The actual Caucasian languages frequently, rather famously, use both H and N as syllable nuclei. So there are in fact entire words in languages in that area that do not have any vowels in them, but the languages overall do have vowels.
I'd also like to point out here that the word Yehovah or Jehovah was intended to not be pronounceable.
Yeah,
or
so remind you to say
easily
Adonai.
pronounceable.
Yeah.
The whole point. Oh my god, I want to say it so bad. The whole
Well, we're
point
only 8 super chats away.
of this was to ensure that when you encounter this word, you say something else.
Adonai, generally.
That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Adonai, Hashem. Yes. It.
Yeah.
This is the point. Bodie. Man.
Let's see. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, Lord is Bodhi's dying cortex struggling to free to opine its state, praying for salvation and an end.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that puts us only, again, 8 away. So we could get the unshackled version of Kip here. All right. It's like a personal name for God. Great. Information about this name was given to Moses and comes from I am who I am in Exodus 3:14. Actually, that's a later folk etymology applied to a fairly opaque word.
Mm.
And it doesn't come from I am who I am, which is Ehya, Asher, Ehya.
Sure. Yeah.
It comes from, according to the author of this story in Exodus, it comes from the Hebrew root hava. Like he just doesn't understand anything. It's
in Exodus 3:14, or specifically I am. God is the great I am. He is the triune God. So
what the hell?
there's
Where does that come in? Like
certainly
where
not
is
in
that
Exodus 3:14.
in the text?
Certainly nowhere in
Anywhere.
Exodus. Well,
The triune God? Are you kidding me? Where?
Source. He made it up.
well, he didn't make it up. Other people made it up long before him. To be fair, Bodhi is not the originator of this idea. Chuck V for $20 says, I'm officially offering Bodhi a paid scholarship to Dr. Davis or Dr. Bowen's beginner Hebrew class. Please take it. It will change your life, sir. The thing is, he's not going to take you up on that. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys know, but Bodhi has been almost completely scrubbed from Answers in Genesis website. You can't even search for him, even though his name is still on a few articles that they still have up. If you search for those articles using his name, it won't display them. But if you search for those articles with other authors' names, the other people on the thing, they'll show up. So I don't know exactly what happened, but clearly
Damnatio Memore.
something happened, and Bodhi's existence has been almost completely scrubbed from the Answers in Genesis website, except, by the way, apparently, for their AI, because apparently their AI chatbot's training data still includes Bodhi, and so it will still answer questions about him. So that's interesting. But yeah, as a casual observer going to the answers.com, I think, or is it .org? I don't remember. It's the Answers website. Yeah, you wouldn't even know that Bodhi Hodge ever existed, even though he's the founder and current CEO's son-in-law. And I say current CEO because their other CEO left after less than a year of employment at Answers in Genesis. Now, to be fair, he was less scrubbed than Bodhi, and so it does actually seem to me like it was less acrimonious than whatever is happening with Bodhi, because it seems more of a, like, this just isn't a great fit, and both he and the rest of the Answers in Genesis people were like, man, this is probably not going to work out. And so it does seem like it was a more amicable split. Like, you can still find his articles. You won't find the releases about him being the new CEO. They took that stuff down. But, like, you can still find his stuff on their website. So I don't know what exactly the deal is going on there. But if you happen to have an in, because I do know, I have been contacted by people who, like, have worked recently for Answers in Genesis or know people there. If you know what the heck is going on with that, please tell me, because I would love to have the dirt on why Bodie has
Spill the
been
tea.
robbed away.
Yes.
Lieutenant Math Navigator
That
for
sounds
$10
fun.
says, I didn't know it was possible to go through life as a broken pencil, but I'm looking at a pretty compelling evidence that you can live without having a point.
Amazing.
Nice. Take note of Christ's use of this term. Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. John 8:58. All right, well, okay, even if, and I don't want to get into the whole thing about the Trinity, but even if we take that as an assertion of a Trinitarian nature of God from Jesus in John, even if we just accept that, that doesn't put the Trinity into Exodus. It's not how that works. There's no indication that anyone who was originally reading Exodus or any of the authors involved in the composition of that text had any idea of what the Trinity was or were intending to communicate anything of the like. Joshua Geese for $5 says, Bodie, AIG persona non grata. And it does seem to be true, and it's weird, man. Like, they don't do that to everyone who ever leaves the organization, right? There are people who have left, and, like, their contributions are fine because they left on good terms, and there's no bad blood, and that's okay. But yeah, Bodie now has his own ministry, and I don't remember what it's called, but I should look into it. Because, you know what? Maybe it has more stuff that's interesting. The Jews knew exactly what Jesus was claiming. He was claiming to be God, and they wanted to stone him for it. The problem for the Jew, every time Bodie says the Jews, it makes me really feel weird.
Ugh.
It's really gross, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Even though,
Yeah.
like, technically in this particular context, he's not saying anything particularly gross. It's like, I feel like he wants to, though. That's the thing. I feel like he wants to.
The Jews knew exactly what Jesus was claiming. Like,
Yeah. The problem.
bro is just teeing up that anti-Semitism
Yeah, he's
so fast.
He's making it definitely easy as a conclusion to jump to.
I mean, it was so obvious that Jesus was their promised Messiah, and they rejected him. So
The problem for the Jews is that Jesus is God.
What a problem.
And he came to rescue them and the rest
how
of
you
us from
dealing?
sin and death by dying on the cross. All right. This is a lot
Claire
of preaching.
He's gonna talk about salad now, but
Let's
somehow
see.
misspelled lettuce.
Pointing to
My own
Pentecost.
judgment.
yeah, this is just
Uh,
preaching.
Yeah, okay,
This
but
is all just
here's the
preaching.
thing. There's
Yeah.
nothing in the... This one is a little bit interesting, though. Lastly, take note of Christ's involvement in bringing languages back together in Pentecost, right?
Y'all,
Here's the problem.
literally,
It's not what's in the
Oh,
text.
it's Shavuot.
No.
If he knew, which he, of course, why would he? The holiday is called Shavuot. It means weeks, and it's the culmination of 49 days of counting, and it mirrors the giving of the Torah at Sinai, which, according to legend, happened in 70 languages. That is why people spoke in multiple languages at that event
Yeah.
in the Book of Acts. They are referencing the legend of Shavuot. Okay.
Mhm. And-
It's not making up something to the Tower of Babel. This is not what it's doing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is there's no actual real connection to the Tower of Babel except for the theme of language. That's it. Not everything that references language and it being understood or not understood or whatever is a reference to the Tower of Babel. Now, here's the thing, right? If you want to make for your own, devotional purposes, if you want to make a thematic connection, okay. But you don't get to say that that's actually inherent to the text and that people who don't see that are wrong or that was what was intended by the authors or understood by the first audiences of the text, right? That's not the same thing. You can make whatever connections are meaningful to you in your own personal devotional practice, or even if you're like some kind of like community leader, like a pastor or a priest or something, and you want to share the meaningful connections that you've made with your congregation, that's okay too. But to imply that that's actually an objective part of the text when it's just not is not okay. It's not an appropriate thing to do.
Mm-mm.
So let's see. So let's just the rest of that is preaching, but I do want to comment on that one sentence because it was actually like, no, Bodie. That's Not a thing you can just say. Genesis to Romans Road. Because our mutual grandfather Adam sinned, we now sin too. Okay, that's cool. I don't care about these Bible verses. Appendix.
That's it. Oh my God!
There's an
Are
appendix.
you kidding me?
Oh no!
About the date of Job.
What? What? What is this? What is it? Why? Why?
It's the
Why
appendix.
is this here?
Because don't you want to know about the date of Job?
Okay.
I'm just gonna say, if Job wants me to
Alright.
go on a date with him, he's gonna have to give me a whole lot of those riches. I want at least 30 camels, Job. At least.
He's got him, you know.
He does.
He's got
I mean,
him.
I don't know what I would do with 30 camels. I guess eat them slowly after buying a big deep freezer. I don't know what else I would do with 30
I'm good.
camels. I guess I could keep
No, I'm
one or
good.
two for like camel milk, but I don't know if I like camel milk. I've never had it.
I would
Are they nice? Are camels
potentially
No,
use.
they're dicks.
No, they're very mean.
Yeah.
nice? Mm.
They're built out of spite.
Yeah. There was actually a weird incident of a guy who owned some camels getting killed by one of his camels because he did not provide the camel with a Coca-Cola.
Sorry, say that again.
There was a story in the U.S.
Mhm.
not that long ago about a guy who he had a camel, and every
Yeah.
day he would show
Yeah,
up.
So wait,
and he
hold
would
on.
give it a
So-
bottle of
Sorry,
Coke.
back up. Wait, whoa, back up. A guy in the U.S. had a camel.
I mean, where else
Okay.
would you have them?
I mean, there's lots of places where you can have a camel. Hey, I want to point out camels evolved
guess.
in the area that is now the United States. That's where
Is that-
camels
is
first
that real?
evolved. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
The
All right, so
earliest
he's
camel
just,
fossils
he's
are
just
actually
repatriating. He's
Yeah.
just repatriating the camel.
the
Got
earliest
it.
camel
Okay.
fossils can actually be found not too far from me.
Oh, neat.
In fact, the local museums, when they go out on fossil digs, camels are one of the things they often dig up. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, at least he isn't locating Job in Shanghai. Yeah, Kip, you know that Kent Hovind has
Yeah.
argued that Job
I know.
is actually Chinese.
I am aware
Yeah, it's
because he's from the east,
right.
Right.
That's what that means, apparently.
That's it.
Well, we only need 4 more super chats, and we can unleash the Kip.
Oh God.
All right. So, anyway, do you want to go for it, Kip, or do you want me to keep going?
No. I can do. I'll do this.
Okay.
All right. Was Job written around the time of Abraham, during the Judges, or somewhere in between? Feels like he might be missing an option or two in there. Like
But
this
there is no
feels
time?
like a false dichotomy here.
Mhm. Like it might be set in
Okay, so
in a non-specified time and place because it's a fictional
Now,
story that's
let's look at
basically
this.
just a
Can you
theodicy.
scroll up again? Can you scroll up a little bit again here? So I mean, at least he's got this part right, where he didn't add a chapter number to the appendix.
Right.
But I don't like this, where you've got a sentence, and then it says introduction.
Yeah, this is basically a subtitle here.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and even it just Bodie. Yeah, okay. Introduction. Job
Wait, real quick.
is no doubt.
We'll get a super chat. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says there was a serious attempt to introduce camels to the American Southwest in the mid 19th century. I'm actually kind of surprised it didn't take better.
Yeah.
Camels
All right.
are pretty adaptable. And then
Remember
Sue-
the story that one time people saw like a monster running around, but it turns out it was a guy who had died while riding a camel, and his
Oops.
body was still attached, and they were just
Oof.
like, "Oh my god!" Yeah.
Sealoof says
That's horror
cat meds
stories.
ate my cuss budget. Frowny face. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Those darn cats always getting sick. Josh McGee
absolutely.
Josh
The
McGee for
men's
$5
need to-
says
yep.
release the Kippen. Well, we're close. We only need 2 more super chats.
Oh wow. Okay.
All right, go ahead, Kip.
This mean one of the most obvious things that Bodie has reported in this book is that Job is no doubt an ancient book. All
True.
would agree.
Take a drink.
Yes, Bodie.
Breath
That's
smells
true.
like cat food.
But how ancient? If one opens a King James Bible that retained many of Usher's dates, because he
Yes.
knew, right? Yeah.
Ah, yes, the
Uh,
King James Bible.
It
That
places
source.
Job in the time of the Judges around 1520
Does it now?
BC. Oh, like Oh,
I mean, I'm sure that
This
there's
is
a footnote
awkward.
somewhere that says that. He's probably right about that.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean the time of the judges, even among those, like when I think of the time of the judges, and I tend to think of that loosely as like the preformative period prior to the emergence of the kingdoms of Israel, possibly Judah, and other
Yeah.
realms in the area like Moab and Edom. Well, actually, Edom was around longer, but maybe Aram, places like this, right? Like
I think of that as
so
the disparate plan period of history.
yeah. So this is essentially
good news.
kind of that transit. Oh, good. Okay, I feel like I'm gonna need it in the next 15-20 minutes, but this is generally like the this transitory period between the end of the Bronze Age and this emergence, which is fuzzy. So it's like it's that kind of a period of time. But very importantly, this is not 1520 BC. What we're talking about is like the 11th, maybe the 10th century, right? That's kind of what I think. And many, and I'm not just talking, this isn't just a scholar's thing when they approach the Bible. None of it, critical scholars would never call that the period of the judges. They would just, assign that as the time in which stories about the judges seem to be set and might preserve some echoes of actual historical social memory. But very importantly, Bodie's so strongly committed to this old dating, this traditional dating of the text, that even like the vast majority of scholars who would identify themselves as Christians do not, or scholars who are observantly Jewish would never adhere to. I think that needs to be pointed out, and you need to read some super chats.
All right, Deconstructing Laura for $4.99 says, "Oh yay, the Book of Job cracks knuckles, brings knowledge." Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, "There is also a recorded incident of a camel shooting its owner." Yeah. Camels are dicks. Although I actually don't know about the shooting.
Damn.
I don't know how a camel would do that.
Wow.
But permits.
I'm interested in this.
Meat Permits Tad for $5 says, "Just gonna put this here. Yehovah. Thanks. Thanks."
No, you finish.
Roaching the Facticity of Cheese Keller for $4.99 says, "So camels walked all the way from the US to the Ark and then decided they'd just stick around the area where the Ark landed." Stubborn. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, how did... Like, dude,
awesome.
There's a reason that young Earth creationists just avoid biogeography like the plague. Because they just have even less explanation for biogeography than most other things. Like, it just completely is a baffler for most of them. Like, why do we find camel fossils in North America that are post-flood? Yeah, suborbital platypus. Yeah, exactly. Misty, who's been a member for 29 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, "I know a very nice camel named Isaac." Well, I will say, just like with many animals, different animals of the same species can have different personalities and also can be differently socialized. And so, yeah, you will get a variety. However, broadly speaking, when I think of friendly animals, camels are not at the top of my list. Now, though, to be fair,
hadn't watched.
Alpacas can be nicer than camels, and they're camelids. But then again, the other South American camelids are jerks. So, like, whatever.
We all discovered, right? Watching The Simpsons, that Stampy the elephant was just a dick.
Oh yeah.
So, right? Sometimes it just happens.
Rusty Longshanks for $1.99 says, "Hey, I actually managed to catch a live. AIG is a bag of dicks, all in just..."
Yeah, it is.
Just the first letters. Was that initialism? Initialism. Unless you want to try to pronounce it.
Agabod.
It's an acronym. It's an acronym, isn't it?
Agiabod, maybe, or Agiabod?
Agiabod.
Well, an acronym is when you try to actually pronounce it as if it were a word.
No, we just made it one.
Yeah, we did. That's why I said, but if we tried to pronounce it, we could make it an acronym. All right. So I think that means we're caught up. So, Kim, I think the thing that
Yes.
you're ignoring, though, is that all of these things that you're saying about how what critical scholars would do and historians,
Yes.
and is that
Mhm.
none of them are as epic as Bishop Usher.
Sorry, they're not as what?
Epic.
They're not as epic.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. Don't worry about it. It just means that you should trust Bishop Usher.
Okay. All right.
Based in Usher
Um,
pilled.
Exactly.
Okay. The King James of 1611.
It's a weird phrasing, but sure, whatever, Bodie.
It really is. Actually places Job as a descendant of Abraham through Midian, his
Sure.
son.
Where would anyone get that?
Though, here he
Oh,
got
without
it.
expect-
The King
explanation,
James
okay.
version, 1611, based on the facsimile at the Bible Museum in Goodyear. Oh, do you know this place?
Oh
The
my
Bible
God.
Museum in Goodyear, Arizona. Are you guys familiar with with this place? Watchers of
I'm
my
not.
channel might be familiar with this
Wait,
place.
is that the place
do you
that had
remember
the fake,
this?
the
Vish?
fake Dead Sea Scrolls fragments that you helped
Yeah,
debunk?
yes.
Okay,
yes. So
I
this
didn't know
is-
it was in Goodyear.
Yeah. It's close by. It's in a hotel.
Wait, really?
Like a Motel 6.
That's so weird.
In like I know it's fucking. Oh, sorry.
No, you're
Damn
good.
it.
You're good.
I know, but I didn't want to use it there. I didn't.
You get a free pass.
Oh,
You're good for the rest of
I-
the show.
What?
You have a free F-bomb
Like-
pass for the rest of the episode.
I can just say it.
Yeah. I mean, try not to abuse it to just
Oh.
say it like 5 times in a row.
Oh,
but you're good.
So but it's fucking hilarious. It is because Bodie's using. Now, yes, it's a legitimate manuscript, right? But holy crap,
They have a
it's
legitimate King
in
James. Good to
a-
know.
museum, right? In a hotel lobby at the side of the road, and it's not like we're not talking about a hotel lobby at like a destination hotel that you would go to, right? Like this is not the hotel lobby of the Ritz or the Waldorf or something like that. This is the lobby of a hotel that is on the side of the highway that you might check into if you need a place to sleep, because if you don't, you're going to drive off the highway and kill someone. So, but seriously, you should go check it out, Dapper. I have no idea. How far are you? Sorry, I don't mean to. People.
It would probably take me a good hour or so to get to Goodyear.
Yeah, seriously, I feel like you need to go see this place. Just for me, you need to go see this place.
I might. Dutch Domestic
I'm-
T-Rex Tunicate for $2 says, elephants deserve to be mean if in circuses. And I generally agree. Yeah, circuses are not a great place for elephants. Or animals broadly, which in some cases includes humans. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of circus animals. I think humans can do enough entertaining that you don't need to use other animals against their will to do that kind of thing. So yeah, there is that. So here, there's something weird about this to me, right? So this is in the 1611 King James version of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
You can buy facsimiles of that. You don't need to reference some
You
specific
don't need
manuscript.
to go
of it.
to some.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
Bible museum. Not only are
To the
original
fake
printings
museum?
elsewhere, but you can get a facsimile of that. You can still buy the 1611 version of the King James version of the Bible, complete with the front piece with the engraving on
Sure,
it.
you can.
Like all of
Yes.
that is just available. You can just buy it. Go to a bookstore.
Probably pricey.
Actually, that's
Yeah.
good. You know what? Let's find out. Let's just check Amazon.
Are
See how much
are
they
we
charge
The
me.
Internet
While-
Archive.
While you look, I'm going to continue. Usher placed Job a little earlier than this during the time of Joseph and the end of Genesis, about 1635 BC. Like I know a certain now disgraced Egyptologist who would have a field day
Yes.
with this. And that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, Star Song
Dr.
for $2 says AIG is a satchel of baculum, and I will take a drink.
Oh.
Although I do think it should be bacula.
Yes.
Also,
I
Holy
agree.
Bible 1611 edition, King James, $22 on Amazon.
Oh my God! Right?
Bodie could absolutely afford a $22 Bible. That is cheap for that. You can get fancier versions, right? Like you can get
Sure.
the 120 version from Cambridge University Press or whatever. But like,
See, I was.
yeah, it's
I expect the one that they have on display at the Bible Museum in Goodyear, and by the way, like Roshina, yeah, no, not even like the lobby of a Marriott. Like we're talking, it's literally like a Motel 6 or like a Holiday Inn, or
it's just not part of a big chain.
on the side of the. No, it is.
Oh,
it
it
is
is?
in a big chain motel. It's just like the super,
Jeez.
the super cheap ones, right?
Is it a Super 8
so
lobby?
like it could be a Super 8 lobby. I have to go back and check because I don't remember offhand. But anyways, I expect though, like the one that they have on display there likely costs hundreds, maybe even thousands
Oh yeah,
of
probably
dollars,
because it's
just
probably an original
in terms of the
manuscript.
quality, right? Yeah. Well, no, I mean it's a facsimile, and some of them, like for instance, yeah. So like the university where I used to teach out here, Trinity Western University, purchased like a facsimile of the Leningrad Codex that cost them, in the ballpark of $5,000 US dollars, right?
More than this computer.
So, yeah, right. So there's a quality gap here.
All right, new GoFundMe. Let's get me a facsimile of the Book of Kells. That's the book that I want a facsimile
That's
of.
awesome.
Let's go, everybody. That'll tie into my adoptive human family's dad's side. That side's
Brilliant.
primarily Irish. It
That's
does remind me. I did promise to give an update on the computer. We do want to go through that real quick because I'm going to forget otherwise. So, the computer updates. So one, it is working quite well. It used to be on the other computer that when I would do Sheep It overnight on my computer with my GPU, I would get about 400,000 points. I let Sheep It go overnight last night for about 11 hours and came back to came back to about 1,300,000 points after about 10 hours, which is a little bit longer than I usually have it go, but still, it's a lot more points. So there's that. It is working right now with this. I mean, obviously, I had some hiccups, but that's more of a me not having everything set up correctly. It is currently performing quite well with OBS. I did have a bit of a scare where I thought I had lost a bunch of files. It turns out I was just wrong about which hard drive they were in, and so I installed the correct hard drive as an external drive, and suddenly they were there. So, that was a bit of a scare for a good portion of yesterday. It was like, oh no, these could just be gone, like gone. So I was like doing like data recovery options and all sorts of stuff, and I was like, oh no, this is terrible. But nope, turns out everything's fine. And also, while this computer is... Oh, actually, there was one other thing. There was a file that I had rendered previously that took about 3.5 hours on my old computer, because in addition to being very intense on the GPU, it also required my CPU to calculate a bunch of different 4D textures, which takes a while. I rendered it in a bit over half an hour on this computer because of the increased CPU power and RAM. So, yeah. Well, so this computer is doing a lot better for production, which is the primary purpose. But if you are interested, additional improvements to gaming performance is a perk of having a render-focused computer. And so I am happy to report that I was able to play Doom Eternal with maximum graphic settings, including ray tracing, at 144 frames per second. I tried the same thing on Satisfactory with global illumination, which is sort of a screen space ray tracing approximation, which is pretty intense on your CPU. And that ranged between 86 FPS and 112 FPS, depending on what I was doing and what I was looking at and how fast I was moving. So, if you're curious as to whether or not it's working for games, it absolutely is. However, I've also played Factorio on it, at which point it maintained its normal 60 FPS, because that is an amazingly well-optimized game that you can run on a potato. So, there's the update. I wanted to not forget. So thank you. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who donated to help me get a new production computer. The old computer is currently near me. I'm not sure if there's any parts that I'm going to scavenge or I'm going to let Bent scavenge. But eventually, I will find out where a nearby e-waste location is and toss out all of the electronic bits that I'm not keeping, which will probably not be many, but there you go. But can it run Crisis? Says Lieutenant Math the Navigator for $2.
I really want to
to
find
say-
out. No, go. Sorry, Vish.
Oh, isn't your GPU better than mine?
Yes.
Your old one?
My old one? Yeah, probably. What's your GPU?
I'll need to check.
Oh, well then maybe. The old one was
I'll need to check. It's almost certainly better than mine.
the old one was an RTX 3060.
Yeah, that's better than mine.
Okay.
If Bent doesn't claim it.
You want it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll ask him.
Okay.
I might ask you to pay for
I
the
really
shipping.
want to.
Do that.
Okay.
I really want to find out who Dr. John Gill is. After I read this quote, do you have something before
yes,
I continue?
I've got Lieutenant Math the Navigator for $2 says, but can it run Crisis?
Oh.
No, of course not. Crisis is more or less impossible to run at a good frame rate.
Huh?
I actually haven't checked it on Crisis,
Oh.
but Crisis is a famously poorly optimized game that is a nightmare to run. All right, keep going.
All right. So, but before I do, I just wanted to say, Roshina, yes, yes, absolutely, it's fucking hilarious. It absolutely is fucking hilarious. It's funnier than the Creation Museum in, I think it's Big Valley, Alberta. Is that what it's called? Big Valley. It's literally right outside of the town that I grew up in. You know the one I'm talking about, Dapper?
I
You
wasn't
should know
even
these
aware
things.
of a Canadian Creation Museum.
Oh yeah.
When you said
like
the
it's
Creation
right-
Museum,
it's-
I was expecting you to say Glen Rose, Texas.
which is yeah, it's literally like the one in it's Big Valley or Big Springs, Big Springs, Alberta. It's literally just a shack. It looks like like one of those big
That does sound
sheds
familiar.
that you buy at Home Depot. But this place, I mean, it's amazing because it's literally in the lobby of like a dingy old hotel.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. So anyways,
Fearmonger, WS Wordsman says, but how big was the Factorio factory? The size is the thing that matters in the game's performance. So I don't know exactly how to measure that because I didn't bother to calculate my SPM, but I will say that on my novice Surface, I did have approximately 5,000 logistics spots going at a time with no stuttering or loss of frames at all. And I had I had a higher number. I had about 10,000 going on my Gleba Surface. And that also caused no reduction in frame rate. So for the way I end up playing, often it's logistic spots. They're one of the limiting factors. And so the game was calculating between those two surfaces alone, some 15,000 of them, and doing just fine. So I'll give it that.
should we find out about Dr. John Gill?
Yes, John Gill
He elaborates on the debate at hand. Dr. John Gill elaborates on this. To get it right, Dapper.
I'm sorry.
It is also not agreed in what time Job lived. Maimonides says that the writers says of the writers, some place him in the times of the patriarchs, some in the time of Moses, others in the times of David, and others say that he was of the wise men of Babylon. And some add that he was of them that came out of the captivity there, and had a school at Tiberias, as say the Talmudists. Do you have any idea what? I don't know what these mean.
Maimonides? Not Maimonides?
Yeah, sorry, I know. My mom and I struggle with pronouncing things sometimes. So I'm not
Okay.
gonna. I'm not.
You're
going
doing
to,
a lot
to
better
worry.
than
But
Chesh.
do you know anything about the L and the M and the curly brackets
Not a clue.
here? Vish, do you have any idea what this is?
Hang on, let me make this.
Is this like an
My
anglicized
my guess
version
this
of something?
bigger.
my guess is that this is actually some kind of internal reference system that John Gill was using that Bodie does not know, doesn't make any sense in a block quote.
Yeah, I don't think he knows. He just copy pasted it.
Chesh gave me the
What
angry
is it?
frowny face emoji. Sorry, Chesh, but Kip is doing better than you are when it comes to pronouncing things.
So
Yeah,
does it correspond to something?
I think it's an
Um,
internal reference system that Don Gill was using, and that Bodie doesn't understand and doesn't know that maybe
No.
he should cut it out of the quotation. That's my guess.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, he had a school at Tiberias, as say the Talmudists, who give very different accounts of him. Some say he was in the time of the judges, others in the times of the Queen of Sheba. It's a long quote. And others in the times of Ahasuerus. But the more general opinion is, and indeed the more probable, that he was born when the Israelites went down to Egypt, and that he was dead when they came from thence. Oh, these are.
Okay.
Oh, I see. So yeah, they're just footnotes.
Mhm.
I understand now. Right? Okay. In short, they place him almost in all the ages from Abraham to the Babylonish captivity and after it, and even Luther was of the opinion that he lived in the times of Solomon, for which there is no more reason than for the rest. It seems most probable that he lived before Moses, at least before the giving of the law to him, since no mention is made of it in this book, nor any reference to it. Whereas there is two things more ancient, as the general deluge, the burning of Sodom, and I assume, and so on. I guess that's
that's
what
et
that
cetera.
means. And
That's et
yeah,
cetera.
the law concerning sacrifices only to be offered by priests was not as yet given. For Job offered sacrifices as being the head of his family, and so did his three friends. Job 1:5, 4:28. The length of his life best agrees with the times before Moses, for in his time the age of man was reduced to 70 years, whereas Job must live 200 years or more, since he lived 140 after his restoration.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead
Okay.
and say that I think that the date on this source is sometime in the late 1800s. See
I
if we
was
can't
I was
find that
going
out.
to say 18th century.
Wait,
oh my God.
2012?
He's
Oh wait, no. Okay, hold on. This is from a book that was later adapted online by Larry Pierce in 2012. We actually have to find out when the
Oh, do we need to
original
Google this
actual
guy?
source. Yeah,
We
okay.
need to Google John Gill's commentary on the Old Testament. Are you doing that?
I'm doing it right now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
John Gill's exposition of the Bible commentary, Bible study tools. Go away, all these stupid ads. He preached in the same church as C.H. Spurgeon over 100 years earlier.
Oh, so that is
100 years
okay,
before
so
Spurgeon. Okay.
before Spurgeon.
Okay.
So Spurgeon was preaching at the end of the 19th century. So I think
So this
I
is
think
early 18 or
it was
late
probably
1700s.
right. Yeah, like
Jeez.
late 1700s.
All right,
Yes.
well, I'm going to
Yes,
take
'cause
a
they
drink
knew,
for
right?
using the oldest sources possible, because that's Bodie's thing. And to be fair, it does correspond to his idea that the Bible is the most accurate book ever, in part because of how old it is. In fact, I remember being told in church that one of the reasons that the Bible was so reliable is, in fact, because it was so old. I then pointed out that there were much older Hindu scriptures, and that didn't go over well. And I was not also then given a reason to reject the Hindu scriptures as being literal accounts of the past because of their
reasons,
antiquity.
man.
Yeah. It's apparently antiquity only works for the things that already agree with you as a reason to believe them, which super convenient, I suppose. All right, so
Very true.
we are going to pick this.
Explanation. I was going to say the only explanation that I ever got for when I was like, hey, these, ancient Vedic texts and stuff like that are way older. The only explanation people could give me was, oh, well, physically, yes, the manuscripts are older, but that's just because the
Of course.
Hebrews were transmitting their information, word by word of
Word for
mouth.
word?
They didn't write it down until later, but their ideas are older than that.
And remember, the Vedas have
Okay,
no
sure.
preceding oral period.
Uh-huh.
None.
I was like, oh,
Not a
okay.
thing.
Sounds like you made that up, but whatever.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Can I
Let's
say
finish
something
this-
about Charles Spurgeon?
Yeah.
Or are we?
No, go
Oh,
for it.
okay.
But here's what we're going to do. We're
yeah,
going to finish off this paragraph, and then we're going to be done. We'll come back for In Abraham's Time next time.
Oh, okay.
Ugh.
I'll just say something about Charles Spurgeon first. He was, I believe, a Baptist minister in the UK, very, very famous towards the end of the 19th century. The funnest thing I think about Charles Spurgeon is that there's a very famous civil engineer by the name of Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Have you guys heard of this guy?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Oh, okay. He built like tons of shit in the UK, like bridges and giant buildings. And one of the things that he engineered and oversaw the construction of was the Great Eastern, which was one of the earliest large steamships, I believe, over 400 feet long. It was and I also think it was a steel-hulled ship as well, if I'm not misremembering. And it had like sails as well as engines in it for crossing the Atlantic. It was for transatlantic travel, because it was one of the earliest versions of these, and because it was so gigantic. Like, this is like, you have to think in the mid late 19th century, it was just enormous compared to anything else that was on the seas at the time. It was a bit of a novelty. Things didn't work well. It was fairly quickly retired, even though it was an engineering marvel. It is the vessel that actually laid the transatlantic cable between the UK and St. John's, Newfoundland. But there's when the Great Eastern
Real quick,
was
Dapper's a professional.
Okay, good. When the Great Eastern was basically retired, in the I believe it was the Times of London, a political cartoonist made a cartoon where he envisioned the Great Eastern basically becoming like a circus. So it had like amusement park rides on it and everything, and there's a big sign on it for Charles Spurgeon. We'll preach here every day at like 8 o'clock.
He's a tourist attraction
PM.
in his own
So
right, huh?
He was that big back in the 1850s.
I guess
60s,
good for him.
70s. So,
Isn't he the one who gave
yeah,
these sinners in the hands of an angry God sermon? That's
No.
famous?
That was Jonathan Edwards, and that was
okay.
like about 100 years before that. So,
well,
but Spurgeon said all sorts of terrible shit too. So, yes, let's read this. In recent times, it's rare to find someone mention Job in the eras of just before Moses or in the time of the judges, but much sooner, usually very soon after Babel, and before or contemporaneous with Abraham. With what? No, not at all. Anyways, when the idea of millions of years began invading the church in the 1800s, many Christians began loosening the dates of the patriarchs. Like underwear and chastity
Bodie's
belts.
mom.
They're just loosening them. They're just getting right in there. The date of Abraham, for example, began being pushed back. In a time as with many other dates in Genesis, the biblical dates seemed irrelevant to many scholars. This author suggests that the older date for Job was easier to swallow as long age dates began to emerge as opposed to biblical dates. In fact, this author promoted this older date for some time prior to recent holy shit. So look, so he's just putting, like, there's no citation here. He's just saying, like, I have a girlfriend who lives in Canada.
Mhm.
Right? I knew this all the time, even though I have no proof of this. It's just me. But my God, like, what are we even arguing here?
So
what
he's arguing is when Job actually lived, because the problem is that the story of Job is very clearly an account that was written without the intention of it even being taken as historical, because there are no identifiable
question,
like, time periods in there. Like, it doesn't talk about which king is reigning. It doesn't tell you about what the political state is. It doesn't even really tell you where Job lives, except that Chaldeans live nearby because they're the ones who raid him. Right? That's all we know.
Yeah.
That's the only setting information that we get, is that no matter when and where Job happens to be, there's Chaldeans nearby. Okay, well, that's a lot of places at a lot of times. And the problem is that I think it's probably intentionally that way, because the author wanted to have a timeless story about why bad things happen. And remember, the ending of Job is tacked on. The original ending was just, yeah, everything sucks and sometimes God's a dick. You just deal with it. You just deal with it. What are you going to do?
But whoever came along and added the sarcastic ending is a legend.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Bodie needs it to be historical. And I don't know why, really. Right? Because, like, what would it mean for his theology if Job were, in fact, just a story like the parables of Jesus, which even Bodie's type Christians don't generally think of as historical, right? Like, no one actually thinks that wedding feast with the king was a real story about a real king having a real wedding feast. Why can't
There's no
Job
stakes there?
Yeah, why can't Job be a parable like the parables in the Gospels? What is wrong with that? And I don't know. I don't know why Bodie can't have that as an option. Because to me, it seems like a very obvious option, right? Like, just accept that Job is a parable and continue on. Because I disagree with Bodie about the necessity for his religion broadly of taking Adam and Eve and Moses and Abraham literally. But I get why he thinks that those are important, right? Because they're importantly referenced by later works. He's got his whole original sin theology that makes Adam important. You don't have to be a Christian, but Bodie does. So, like, I get the point.
This is like if Americans treated Paul Bunyan as historical.
Yeah, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. You know,
it would be preposterous for people to build an entire identity around the story of Paul Bunyan and his giant blue ox. And yet they want to do it for that specific text and get mad at you when you're like, yeah, that's not historical.
Yeah. And it wasn't even supposed to be taken as historical, because, like, I will entertain the argument that the person who's writing about Abraham in various parts of Genesis wants you to take this seriously as a thing that's true. I don't know that that's the case, but I'm open to arguments about it. That's what some of those authors intended, was for you to take this seriously. I don't know. I can't have that same discussion about Job. I see no indication that the author of any of this text wanted you to take this as a literal historical event. Because, first of all, it opens in heaven with the divine council. How did the author know about any of that?
Oh,
right.
Jeez, like, for fuck's sake, Job goes to see the storehouses in the sky where the snow is capped.
Right.
Like, really?
That's technology the ski resorts really need to tap into. Ski resorts, why don't you just go to the storehouses and bring the snow down?
Especially now. So, and I think part of the problem here is that, and we'd be remiss to not point this out, that, like, it's harder to tell the difference between what was intended as fictional as opposed to what was intended as in the range of what we might call history
Right. What we were
in ancient literature.
Yeah, I think
So-
the distinction is supposed to be that fiction, the author is expecting you to not believe these things happened.
Yeah, it's way harder for modern people to detect that
Oh yeah, that's fair.
when they
Mm.
read some of these old texts, right? Even when you read them in the original languages, it can be difficult. So, and just because, and part of the problem here is because within the development of language and literature, it does seem like the prosaic form of what we call historical narrative that is prevalent in the Bible might be innovative. I hesitate to say that, but it looks like it's a development, like like a legitimate literary development that So I think like the temptation then is for some people, for some readers to go, because history, right? Like this is what they're doing. They're actually this is like an early attempt at trying to cross that divide. I think it's and then you encounter stuff like parts of the book of Job employ this form of writing, so it just gets difficult.
We have a couple super chats. Lieutenant Math the Navigator for $5 says, because fiction was invented by William Shakespeare. Bodie, probably. Yeah,
Probably.
definitely. Deconstructing Laura 42 for $4.99 says, some people cling so tightly to the literary nature of the Bible that having Job as a metaphor is unthinkable. I think you meant literal nature of the Bible. Yep. I was one of them once. Yeah, I guess that is it, right? Like, if you're just that tied. And I guess for me, even when I was an evangelical Christian, I don't think I was, which is why I was able to get out of young earth creationism while basically, like, early in high school. Like, by the time I was a sophomore, I was definitely not a young earth creationist. But during freshman year of high school, I was like, I don't, this doesn't seem like it's on the level. But by the time I was a sophomore, I was definitely not a young earth creationist anymore. And so, yeah, I think maybe just my personal experience was unusual. And I mean, there were a lot of things growing up in that church that I saw, and I was like, this doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. It's and a lot of it wasn't about things like that are like, what are often considered like central parts of Christianity, like the idea of an incarnation. Like I could kind of get that. Like that didn't cause me a big problem, but things like the young earth creationism, there was a whole lot of weirdness about the Lord's Supper that I didn't really understand. It seemed contradictory that they were doing, which I did not find to be the case in all Christian groups, so I'll put that out there. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff. And so maybe I was just a really weird evangelical kid. Maybe that was just what it was. Maybe I'm just fundamentally not the kind of person who's gonna
You're
go
a
along with
dinosaur.
that. Well, I mean, yeah, but I
Feels-
was being introduced to human society.
Sure. But it feels like there could have been some
Yeah, maybe
hiccups along the way
evangelical
there, right?
Christianity just isn't for dinosaurs.
Do you know any other dinosaurs who ever even flirted with the idea of evangelical Christianity? Be honest.
I mean, there's a lot of birds out there, and I haven't met very many of them. But no, I'd never met one person.
Oh,
But
see?
also, it's also increasingly the case that when I look at evangelical Christianity today, it's almost entirely foreign to me, even though it was a big part of like the early years of my life. And I look at it now and I'm like, I don't even recognize this. Like there are evangelical Christians who are saying things like Trump is the new chosen one, he's the new David or Solomon or something. I'm just like, what is happening? Like this is not something that I would have ever expected anyone to say about any politician. Like I remember a lot of Reagan worship. But no one was saying that Reagan was like the second coming or a prophet or some shit. Like no one was saying that. Even though everyone was like, "Oh, Reagan was the best president ever." And it's like, you mean the guy who hosted the orgies and had a horoscope that he used to decide what he was going to do? That guy was your great Christian champion, that one? Okay. Also, one of the best Skyrim jokes I ever heard was someone was talking about how they had to get their character to the throat of the world, aka Nancy Reagan. I was like, oh, goddamn. That's... Yeah. Yeah. Hey.
Excellent.
Hey, no shade on Nancy for that, just shade for a lot of other things, including the hypocrisy surrounding that, but not that in itself. You know what, Nancy, if that's your thing, go for it. All right. I'm going to stop talking about Nancy Reagan now.
Go for it, Goat Nancy.
Hey, you know what? It's not like it was just a coincidence that was a nickname that she got. What can I say? The people who got all uppity about Bill Clinton doing weird things with a cigar never seemed to care about the Reagans doing far more extreme things.
I don't know, man.
It's like hypocrisy.
It
kind of feels like that's not maybe the real issue, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
it feels like there might be something deeper.
Obviously, the reason that the cigar thing was made a big deal of was not because of the inappropriateness of having an affair in the White House. Instead, it was just a political attempt to get a Democrat out of office to hopefully weaken the strength of the Democrats.
What a shot!
Yeah.
What a shot!
And the thing is, like, I knew that when it was happening as a kid because I listened to people talking about it, and they were like, "Oh, we can finally get this guy out of office." I was like, "So do you care about the whole like affair thing?" Like, okay, cool.
I mean, well, there were flawed leaders in the Bible because
there certainly were. I actually don't think you can point to the Bible as having a great model for political leadership in any of the prominent political leaders in the Bible.
Weird. It's almost like there's entire sections of the Talmud discussing just how bad almost all of those leaders ended up.
And to be fair, it's not like the Bible doesn't warn against kings before they start happening in the narrative of the Bible. There's a whole section about God who's like, they're going to make you have wars and taxes, and they're going to rule over you, and it's going to suck. And then
look what happened.
And then it turns out,
there's a whole source critical conversation going on here as well that just complicates this much further.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you wanted to look at it the way that a Christian does, is that these are actually contemporaneous narratives that follow one from the other.
Fair.
Then it's very easy to come up with a general skepticism of political power as a good thing from reading the narrative of the Bible in the way that most evangelicals do. Right. It's very easy. And to be fair, I have known people who were evangelical or otherwise, like, theologically conservative Christians who were, like, bordering on complete rejection of the, like, legitimacy of state power and therefore being sort of pro-anarchy as a result of that kind of reading. Not very many, but I have met some. They do exist. They are out there. So, Meat Permits Tad for $2 says, many gods, no kings, the Bible originally. Well, only one god that you're supposed to be worshiping as an Israelite, but yeah, many gods out there and no kings. All right, so let's talk about what's coming up. So, Kip, we are a little over time, but I don't care that much because, spoiler alerts, we're not doing Power Rangers because I have not set up everything I need to set up to do that because I forgot to.
Damn, my dogs. Sorry about the noise.
That's all right. I can't hear it. It didn't come through.
No? Oh, okay. All right. So they're barking their brains out right now.
I hear nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll be. Let's see. This week I'll be doing a midweek stream. I haven't figured out what yet, and then I expect that there will be some more drunken nonsense next Saturday night. For another installment of Budget Scripture Saturday. So I think that's what's happening.
All right,
this week.
Vishanti?
Just continuing to coordinate with Chrissy about our series on, like, anti-Semitic tropes in history.
Nice.
Obviously, it doesn't proceed at a pace that I can guarantee a date because life stuff happens. But it is in the works. We have our collaborative scripting documents open and many tabs in there. So
awesome. All right. Well, what is coming up here? So On Tuesday, Jackson with Jackson. I don't have a title for it, but I have confirmed with Jackson that he is good for that. That'll be at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then on Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, Brian Thomas lies about Archaeopteryx. We're continuing with ICR for another couple weeks, and the next one will be back with Brian Thomas, who, look, I've responded to him a few times lately, and he calls himself a paleobiochemist.
Uh-huh.
Which, okay, sure, whatever. But when it comes to actually him talking about fossils, it is hard for me to come to any other conclusion than he is just blatantly lying. So, yeah, we're going to see him say some things that are just, like I said, it's very hard for me to come up with any explanation other than that Brian Thomas is a liar. I wish I didn't come to that conclusion, because I don't like thinking that these people are liars. I like to think that they're just sincerely ignorant. But he's got the training to know better, and he seems to be well-read enough to know better. So I think he's just lying. So that'll be that. On Friday, once again, we're hoping to have Star Trek Endurance. It didn't happen the last couple weeks, but I think this week we should be good. I don't think Jordan will be there, but I think everyone else will be. So I do have to double check with everyone. But that is the plan, to do Star Trek Endurance over on Top Hats Off, and that will be at 5 p.m. Pacific, which is 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be going to some vineyards and wineries. That'll be fun, right?
Cool.
Can take the crew on a wine tasting adventure. And I'm sure that there will be nothing unfortunate that happens to anyone, except, of course, for the kids who are already getting old, like they have progeria or something, even though that's not what's happening. Spoilers. Anyway, that's that. And then Saturday, we should be back. And I think what we're going to do is we're just going to finish this. However long it takes, we're just going to go through it. And if it takes less time than 2 hours, we can talk about something else for a little bit. And if it takes more than that, I think we're just going to plow through it, because I don't want us to do a third episode concerning this appendix.
Did you mention the pub? Chesh is asking about the pub on Saturday.
Oh, yes. Also on Saturday, I did forget to say that. I will be on Debate Pub on Chesh's channel, which is a sort of current events show that I do with Chesh and Manya and Landon Knoll. So, and it's not all U.S. news, because of the panel, only half of them are in the U.S. anyway. So we do a lot of news. We'll talk about Canadian news. We'll talk about news in places like Australia, New Zealand, India, and I say places like, in the connecting thread there is Manya has lived in those places. That is the only connection that is actually relevant to those three places that for why we talk about them. But we'll also talk about broader international news. We'll talk about, we almost always end up having to talk about Elon Musk, because he somehow manages to force himself into a huge number of the news stories that are important.
Man.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, Space Karen will come up. Almost certainly. So, yeah, if you like that kind of stuff, go check that out over on Debate Hub, which...
is that today or next week?
That's next week.
Okay.
Unless I'm wrong about that, in which case...
Today
Chesh better tell me soon. Oh, yeah. What? No, I thought that was yesterday.
Today was what?
No, I was literally watching like a segment of that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was today. Yesterday was someone else, I think. Anyway. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We are not doing Power Rangers because I forgot to install everything I need to install to make sure that I can actually do that effectively. And I don't want to do it right now. So that's what that is. Sorry. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful time, and make sure that you subscribe to both Chesh and do subscribe to Chesh, but also to Vishanti and Kip, who are linked in the description. And check out their Patreons. Check out my Patreon. Check out me and Vishanti's wish lists. And we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Van Tovend, Ferrevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, Elleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostek von Mennen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, and Vollus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.